it was a very unique learning experience that I'm very grateful I had. All the junk that came with it too, because I wouldn't be me if I didn't have it. But there were a lot of times where going backwards actually wasn't going backwards. It was actually creating opportunities for the future that I didn't realize I was going to have opportunities to take advantage of eventually.
Check in with your relationship with pain, because if you never get to hell no, you're not gonna swing the other way. And this goes for success and failure too. If you never risk failing, you're not gonna get successful.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another episode of Next Level University, where we help you level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed yesterday's episode number 1563, One Powerful Reframe on Money. Today, for episode number 1564, sometimes going backwards isn't actually going backwards. I was talking to somebody yesterday, Alan, and this person has gone through it. They've gone through a lot in 2023 and in 2022. It's been a trying time for them. And I said, it's really hard to give advice when you're going through it, because number one, there isn't really anything right for me to say. Sometimes you ever get messages from people and you just think to yourself, I don't really know what to say. I can give you some positivity and some inspiration, but it just seems like you're going through it and you're probably just going to have to keep going through it, unfortunately. But what I said to this person was, sometimes you going backwards for what might seem like a year is actually you going forward, but it's only you going forward if you keep going, and then you have the perspective in a few years. It's a very challenging thing to deal with and give advice on. But it reminded me of a story that I went through years ago that is this in a nutshell. At the time, it seemed like the worst outcome, but in retrospect, it was actually one of the best things that has ever happened to me. So, for those who don't know, I worked in an industry called weatherization. Nobody's heard of weatherization, at least most people haven't. All it means is it was our job to make buildings more energy efficient. So we'd go into schools and we would make them more energy efficient. And it required a ton of travel. I made good money doing it, but I spent weeks and months on the road, living in sketchy hotels, driving 6, 8, 12, 16 hours to job sites. It was just brutal. So the year I made the most money I had ever made with the company was the year that I was willing to grind my face off because I thought money was going to create happiness for me. It didn't end up doing it. So the next year, the year after I made the most money I'd ever made, there was a job opening within the company. And it was an office job. Remember this? It was an office job that required a little bit of travel. You might have to drive down to New Jersey for one day and then
we were podcasting at this point.
We were podcasting.
I remember you asking me, do you think this is a good idea?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I applied for this job. And I was going to go from, and this is how desperate I was, and this is how miserable I was, and this is how unsustainable my life was at the time. I was going to go from making $100,000 to, I believe, $50,000. I was going to take a $50,000 pay cut because I just wanted the certainty of being home. I just wanted to be home at the end of the night. And even if I was traveling 1 day a week, 2 days a week, I was okay with that because at least I'd be home more. So I applied for the job within the company, and I'm thinking I'm a shoo-in. I have more seniority than anybody else who's applying. This is going to be fine. I go in for an interview, and I feel like the interview goes really well. It's with my project manager at the time. And I get a call, whatever it was. I actually stopped smoking weed because I was afraid I was going to get drug tested, and I didn't want to lose the opportunity.
I remember that.
I was committed to this. I wanted this job. I wanted this job very badly. So I get a call, and they say, hey, can you come in? We want to talk to you about the job opportunity. I'm like, hell yeah, here we go, baby. This is awesome. So I drive an hour and a half in traffic. I go into the office. They sit me down, and they're like, yeah, we called you in here today just to let you know that you didn't get the job. And first of all, I was like, you could have just told me that over the phone. You know what I mean?
They actually called you to drive in there?
Yeah, and it was an hour away, and it was at least an hour and a half with traffic. So this was like a 3-hour.
Wait a minute, hold on.
Yeah.
I've never heard this part of the story. You drove to get told you didn't get the job?
Yes. Yeah. I drove to the office.
How inconsiderate is that?
It's super inconsiderate. But they said we wanted it to be respectful. It's like, you could have just sent me a Anything would have been more respectful than
Email,
this.
a text message.
Even if you just never told me.
Maybe a
that
phone
would be,
call.
That would be the most respectful.
You drove, wait. You drove 2.5 hours?
3 hours probably total.
3 hours total to get
Yeah.
told you didn't get the job?
It was quite literally like a 5-minute meeting.
Dude, sometimes I feel like your life needs to be a sitcom, man.
that part could be.
I can't help it. It's like I always feel bad because I always end up laughing at your pain, but it's just
I thought
like,
for sure I was getting it. I was walking in whistling.
Of course.
Why else would I be here? You know what I mean? You guys wanted me here, so it must be a good thing. So I didn't get the job. And I left that day, and I remember thinking, I'm going to, at some point over the next year or so, I'm going to quit. Like, this is it. If this was my last-ditch effort to stay at this company, I'm not going to be able to last here much longer. And I think this was before my suicidal ideation. It was. Because it was earlier in the year, and it was one of the things that this was like the last-ditch effort. If I can get this job, I'll stay at this company, and everything will be fine. I'll be making money. It won't be as good of money, but I'll have so much certainty, and I'll be able to podcast. I know I'll be home every night, so I can podcast when I get home. Awesome. Didn't get the job. In retrospect, at the time, it was the worst thing ever. I remember it was like the light at the end of the tunnel. Even though it was such a drastic lifestyle change, it was the light at the end of the tunnel. Didn't get it. In retrospect, if I got that job, I might have never left. It put me in so much discomfort, the fact that I didn't get that job. It created so much necessity. It pushed me so far to hell no, I'm not going to stay here anymore. Yeah, I went through some
Can you explain
stuff
that
to get
concept real quick? Because we used to talk about that all the time way back in the hyperconscious days. I've been reflecting a lot in the tail end of 2023 to Mario Kart Boost into 2024, and I went back through and I actually found 3 episodes. So the very first episode of Conversations Change Lives, which was the podcast I had prior to teaming up with Kev,
YouTube
I
channel.
found that episode,
YouTube
which
channel.
Kevin was the first guest.
Sorry,
on.
YouTube channel.
Oh, yeah. YouTube channel. It's going to be a podcast, so whatever. YouTube channel. And then I found the very first interview where Kevin interviewed me on the Hyperconscious podcast. Mm-hmm. And then I found the second time you interviewed me, and that was up in your apartment in New Hampshire. And I reviewed a little bit with Kev, but behind the scenes, a little bit of those episodes. And it is unbelievable, the growth. It's wild. And so if you're out there listening, little side tangent, do yourself a favor and go back. Do yourself a favor and go look at you a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. You owe it to yourself to see the growth, because on the day-to-day, the growth is sometimes invisible. But over the long term, it is wild. I mean, the episodes were just nothing compared to what they are now. And sometimes it's hard to see that. So little side tangent, but Kev, back in the day, Hyperconscious Podcast, we used to talk about you have to get to hell yes before you'll ever get to hell. No, you have to get to hell no before you'll ever get to hell yes. Can you explain that concept?
Yeah, we called it, or we coined it, the old pain-pleasure pendulum. I don't know if it's a thing. I don't know if it's like a psychological thing. I don't know. But the thought that we had was so if you think of a pendulum, or if you think of an old school clock, the thing that, it swings back and forth, the further you go to hell no, the more willing you are to go all in on hell yes. And
you used the Monday at work. Yeah.
So let's say hypothetically you go into work on Monday and you have the worst day you've ever had. It's just brutal. You're cursing your boss, you're cursing the people you're working with, you're cursing the customers, whatever it is. If you don't quit your job Monday, you're going to wake up and you're going to go in Tuesday, and Tuesday might be a little bit better. And then you'll go in Wednesday, and Wednesday's hump day. You're already halfway there. You go in Thursday, Thursday's Friday Eve, so we just got to get through today and tomorrow. You go in Friday, it's Friday, you don't even care, it's Friday. And then Saturday and Sunday come around, and you're back to uncomfortable, but not uncomfortable enough to quit. And that's kind of you swinging just in between the pain-pleasure pendulum. There's just not a lot of pain, but there's not a lot of pleasure. I think that's what would have happened if I got that job.
Yeah.
It would have sucked, but compared to what I was doing before, it wouldn't have sucked that much.
It would have put you back in your comfort zone.
Yeah.
It would have put you back in the pendulum barely swinging to hell no, and therefore not all the way swinging to hell yes. So you might not have teamed up with me.
I most likely wouldn't have.
We might not have done an episode a week. At one point, we decided, and we went all in on an episode a week. When was that? Because I know that we did an episode a week for a while. Like, you were doing an episode a week, kind of sporadically.
Yeah.
Then you and I started working together, and then we did one every week. But then there was a couple that we missed or something. And then there was a moment in time when you were like, you and I decided, like, we're going to do an episode a week. We're going all in on this. This is it. And we just never missed after that.
I don't remember when that was. That was after I left, I think. Because I think we missed...
I think it was after 17. Because I remember you had someone on for 16 that I didn't agree with. And I remember thinking to myself, I know we weren't partners at that point. Because if we were, I would have said, please don't. But I think 19... There was a Christmas tree in the background. This is December of 2017. And you and I were at your kitchen table with the Christmas tree in the background. I think 19 was the first official Hyperconscious Podcast meets Conversations Change Lives podcast. And after that, I think we did a week every week for coming up on our 7th year.
I don't remember. I genuinely don't remember because I know we did 1 a week and then eventually we went to 2 a week. But when we did 2 a week, we didn't always do 2 a week.
Yeah.
There was times where we were doing a guest and a solo, and we didn't have a guest, so we would just do a solo, or we do 2 solos, and
yeah,
I don't know.
When we went to 2 a week, we still did 2 a week. It just we didn't always have a guest.
I don't know. I've looked back before, and I don't know when we hit the cadence where we never missed. I don't know. I'm not sure.
I think it was after 19, but again, those numbers tend to matter more to me.
Yeah, I would trust you more than I. But the ultimate thought in all this is that thing that I remember going home. I lived with Matt at the time. I remember going home and being, because he thought I got the job too.
Of course he did. Right? Who asked you to drive 3 hours?
Naturally. And I remember saying, I don't remember the exact thing I said, but I'm sure
what did he say when you told him they made you drive?
He was probably very angry.
Of course.
As
that
was
is
I.
so we wanted to be respectul. It's like, listen, this was wildly disrespectful.
Shoot me a text message.
Yeah, shoot me an email. Say, hey,
anything.
you see the scene in Billy Madison? A simple no would have been just fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm sure he was probably also equally as angry as I was, but I remember going home and saying that, like, I don't know what to do. This was it. In my mind, I was going to get this job. I'm done. I'm not going to stay here. I can't do this. This isn't sustainable for me anymore. In retrospect, best thing that ever happened.
I want to get a book of all the stories. That would be so fun for me.
Maybe one day. Maybe one day.
Oh, man.
I remember, quick story. When I worked at the gas station one time, I just remembered this. Sometimes you had to have people pull up. If you've ever parked at a gas pump, you know, sometimes it's hard to judge how far the pump's going to reach and if it's going to reach you or not.
Yeah.
And there was this old guy, and he was a dick. He was just not a nice man. Nobody liked him at the gas station. And there was this time where I was having him pull up, and then I told him to stop, and then I walked away, and he kept pulling up, and he slammed into the car in front of him. And then he tried to, like, fight me. He was a geriatric individual, and he wanted to throw hands with the kid. And I was like, come on, man, I walked away and told you to stop. This is on you. This isn't a me issue. This is a you issue. You're the driver.
Not to mention, that would be very bad for him.
Yeah, definitely. At the time, I was deep in mixed martial arts training. At the time, I would have had to put him down. But he was an old man, so I was like, "Look, man, I understand you're frustrated and you're angry, but number one, everybody knows you're kind of a dingo, and you've been driving longer than I've been alive. You need to figure it out, dude. You need to figure it out." So that was another gas station story.
Hey, Kevin, Kim here. Just wanted to send you a video to say thank you so much for your help on creating the Peaceful Productivity Podcast. You know, I couldn't have done it without you. I knew you'd be lots of great help with the technical aspects of getting the podcast going, but you went well above and beyond that. You helped me with the strategy and you gave me all kinds of really great support. You know, I think the key to success in business is a great attitude. And you have that in spades. You really walk the walk. So thanks again. Take care. I'll talk to you soon.
Kev's got a lot of stories where it's just, I have trouble not laughing because it's like sitcom worthy. Back to the two things. One, a lot of times the thing that's super painful ends up being a really good thing, for sure. That person who breaks up with you. I have one example where I got cheated on in high school, and that ended up being a really good thing because I moved on very quickly from that. That was like enough pain. Again, there's the pain-pleasure pendulum again.
Yeah.
When the pain is great enough, I remember I told a friend that my girlfriend had cheated on me. He's like, dude, you wanted out of that anyway. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of true. Yeah. But these things that are super painful, and this is the last thing that I'll share in this episode, whether you call it discomfort or pain is up to you. But I want you to check in with what your relationship with pain is. If you have a negative relationship with pain or discomfort, you're going to have a really hard time succeeding. And this is universal. I can't think of a single person who is holistically successful, like without any pain and discomfort. I don't even think it's real. I don't think it's possible. Whether it's getting a better business or a better body or a better relationship, I've had really uncomfortable conversations with Emilia that were really, really, really powerful. And in hindsight, you can look back and go, luckily we had that conversation. And we can laugh at it now. Just the other night, we talked about a conversation early in our relationship, and it's like funny now. But at the time, it was so bad. It was like, oh, my heart. And so check in with your relationship with pain, because if you never get to hell no, you're not gonna swing the other way. And this goes for success and failure too. If you never risk failing, you're not going to get successful. I mean, we've done many, many, many live in-person events, and we've never actually exceeded our goal at filling the room. But we've always gotten a ton of people to events. We've done a bunch of events. You know what I mean? It's really important to be willing to fail. It's the same analogy as, you swing at the baseball and you strike out. In baseball, you strike out, 70% of the time, even if you're really good? Something like that?
You get out 70% of the time, not necessarily strike out, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You get out 70% of the time. Even the Hall of Famers get out, 60% of the time?
70.
70. Okay.
Yeah, 65. I mean, if you get a hit 4 out of every 10 times, you're like the best ever.
The best
over
ever?
Over the course of your career, yeah.
That's wild. That's a good analogy for life. And if you associate more pain from the 6 outs than you do the 4 hits, pleasure from the 4 hits, you're in trouble. And so that would be the last thing I'm saying is 0 to 10. What is your relationship with pain? What is your relationship with adversity? What is your relationship with discomfort? What is your relationship with failure? And these things that you think are huge failures, whether it's me getting broken up with or cheated on, or it's Kevin, not getting that job, driving 3 hours to be told, hey, you were probably dressed up too. Were you dressed nice?
Most likely.
Yeah, dressed nice, all gel,
Yeah.
hair gel. Oh, no, you didn't get the job.
Most likely, yeah.
I
thought I was going to accept a
how
new
bad
position.
was that drive home?
I think there was a part of me that was probably happy, just deep down, because I was so pissed off. It's like, all right, screw you guys then. I'm going to leave. Screw you.
Yeah. How long ago after that until you quit that job? / got let go?
Yeah. Same year.
Let's tell that story real quick. All right, so I'm in the gym with Kev. And he gets a phone call. And
there's more to this, though.
I know. You can preface.
Okay.
They basically said, listen, if
preface is before, just so you know.
Okay. You can interrupt and add fist. During fist. Preface is before, during fist is during. So I think they said something along the lines of, you need to get it together, otherwise you're done. And we need you to do XYZ job or something like that. And you and I talked, and you were on the phone for a hot minute. And I remember we were going to record a podcast episode. It was coming home from the gym, and you were actually out in my yard on the phone for like quite some time. And I was like, I think it was my mom who came out or something. She's like, what's he doing? And I said, he's quitting his job. I think he's quitting his job. And I remember at the time, I think she was concerned. She's like, really? Yeah, understandable. I mean, you got to eventually, right? I remember being pumped. I think I was one of the only ones who was like, great job.
Matt
Yeah,
was.
that's good.
Matt was pumped too.
Matt was pumped too. Okay,
Matt
good.
was
Matt
pumped
and me were like, yes, Kev. Everyone else was like, dude, are you sure?
Yeah.
You know, but that's sometimes people aren't going to support the risks that you take, and then later in life, assuming you stick with it, you know, they'll celebrate you and they'll say they supported you, when in reality you'll look back and go, listen, you thought I was crazy. But that was an interesting story too. Of not long after that, you essentially quit your job / got let go.
So there had been rumblings going on because I was sick of. We were 6 hours away in New Jersey for a job, and it snowed, and school was closed, so we couldn't go work. And I called my project manager and I said, "We're getting paid for this, right?" And he said, "No." And I said, "We're stuck, so let me go home then. I'm not going to stay here if I'm not getting paid. I'm just going to stay in this hotel room because we can't go work. You guys should pay us. This is bullshit." And they were like, "No, we're not going to pay you guys." And I was like, "All right, that's another thing. Like I am so done with this place." So eventually what happened was, the culture was kind of falling apart a little bit. Everybody was angry at leadership. And the project manager was like, "Hey, I want to take you out to lunch." And I was like, "No, I'm not going to drive an hour so you can take me out to lunch. No, I'm not interested." And he said, "Well, I'll come down to you." All right, cool. Free lunch, I'm in. During this lunch, I pretty much told him, I was like, this isn't my forever thing. I'm not going to do this forever. And there's a lot of stuff that people are frustrated with, and here it is. That was a breaking point. He didn't like the fact that I was kind of out at that point. What happened was, Alan and I were supposed to go either record a podcast episode or work out with Catherine Nash.
Yeah.
And if you don't know Catherine Nash, Mini But Mighty on social media, a friend of ours, she's been on the podcast. We've spoken on stage with her. We had a schedule for work that week. We were supposed to work first shift, 7 to 3. I'd be home at 4. I'd be home at 3:30 probably because it was local. Fine. I found out we were supposed to work second shift through the people at the building. Nobody else in my company knew. I called my project manager and said, "Hey, just so you know, they're moving us to second shift. I can't do it. I've already told you I can only work first shift this week." They ended up saying, "I need you to work second shift." And I said, "I am not working second shift."
Yeah, I remember. We went to a gym way out.
Yeah.
Where was that?
Medford.
We used to travel all over the place, huh?
Medway.
Yeah.
I remember they said, my project manager said, "If you don't do this, this is going to be a problem." And I said, "I'm not doing it. I don't care. I already told you. I've told you so many times I can't do this. I'm not doing it." That is the reason I was let go / quit, depending on how you want to look at it.
Yeah.
But all things considered, it was relatively amicable. They said they'd give me recommendations for other companies. They said, "We'll give you referrals." It was like, all right, cool. It just, but even in retrospect, that conversation, I was terrified. I remember the day that I realized I didn't have a job. I was so scared.
I know this wasn't the point of this episode, but it's important, I think. Imagine you now. Isn't it wild to think back? You now, you'd be like, "Yeah, no problem. Okay."
Well,
Like, think about how much more capable you are now.
yeah, but would I have the capability if I was still there? No.
No, of course not.
Right?
That's my point. But if you took you now and went back into those conversations, isn't it interesting to see how scarce you were in comparison?
Well, and you and I are in leadership positions as well, so I understand what it's like to work with people. Now I look back and realize how not good they were at that.
Can we go into that slightly?
Well, it's just the leadership. It wasn't great. There was a lot of scarcity. There was a lot of the communication. Yeah, the communication just wasn't great. You guys make a lot of money. There's a line out the door for people who want your job. No, there isn't. Trust me, I've trained all these people and they last 2 weeks and then they quit. You're wrong about that. But again, it was a very unique learning experience that I'm very grateful I had. All the junk that came with it too, because I wouldn't be me if I didn't have it. But there were a lot of times where going backwards actually wasn't going backwards. It was actually creating opportunities for the future that I didn't realize I was going to have opportunities to take advantage of eventually. And that's the ultimate goal in today's episode. You have a meeting in 3 minutes, so I want to get us out of here. You have a quick next level nugget.
Yeah, my next level nugget is the pain of the loss will always come before the successes later. It's not just the L that you take that feels like an L. not only is sometimes that a W, but it's what you do with it. And hopefully it drives you. So when Kev, let's say you got fired or let go or were treated poorly, like hopefully it drives you to be better. I think that it can drive you, and I think it needs to drive you because your bigger, better, brighter future is on the other side of taking that pain and turning it into power.
My next little nugget is if you're going to not give someone the job, just send them a text or an email or a call.
Yeah.
Any of those. Mail, whatever it is. Whatever else you can do.
Or just ghost you. Ghosting
one.
me would have been better.
Yeah, just don't have me come in and get all dressed up and get my hopes up. Tomorrow, for episode number 1565, one reason many relationships burn out. Tara and I had a really good conversation. She actually suggested this episode. So we are going to do that tomorrow for episode number 1565. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. Grateful for each and every one of you. And at NLU, we do not have fans. We have family. We will talk to you all tomorrow.
Turn your pains into power. Next level nation.